much for all the participants for your enthusiasm to join the sessions. It is indeed a pleasure to have all of you today. First of all, let us give our praise to our God. Due His blessing and mercy, we can still gather virtually in this lovely morning. So let us start today with pray. So the sessions will run well without any obstacle at all. Let the pray begin. Amen. Thank you. Proceed to the next agenda. Now we come into the most awaited section, that is the class sections with our special speaker, the one and only, Mr. Laksamana Kresno Buntoro, SHLLM PhD, the Indonesian Navy Maritime Security and the Law of the Sea. And today we have an interesting topic. We will talking about Indonesian Law of the Sea from military perspective. That will be guided by our moderator, Mr. Pulung Widi Harihananto, SHLLM. All right, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Pulung Widi Harihananto, SHLLM.
Okay, thank you, Tisha, for such lovely introductions. So, the honorable speaker today, Laksamana Kresno Buntoro, and also, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lex Proficia 2021 in the day 8. So, come back with me again. My name is Pulung Widi Harihananto, and this is my honor for today to be your moderator today. Yeah, as I stated our Tisha before in the previous, we will talk or discuss today with such interesting topic. It's about the law of the sea. Maybe some of you in the first year or the second year didn't get this subject, but in this Lex Proficia, we would like to discuss about this subject, yeah, in a special occasion. So join with us today, yeah, the honorable speaker, yeah, Mr. Laksamana Kresno Buntoro, will deliver the presentation in regarding about the law of the sea and also regarding about have the recent development and also the passage regime. Before I start the function and hand over to give the opportunity to Mr. Kresno Buntoro, I would like to read briefly the curriculum vitae or the CV from Mr. Kresno Buntoro. Well, Laksamana or Admiral Kresno Buntoro, LLB, LLM, PhD, yeah, in education background, yeah, she pursue about the background of education in bachelor degree, yeah, he got bachelor degree from Universitas Diponegoro, Faculty of Law, of course. He's also notable alumni, yeah, we proud that we having him as our alumni. And also he got the LLM or Master of Law degree in University of the Nottingham in the United Kingdom with majoring in public international law in the 1995. And finally, he got a PhD in University of Wollongong, Australia, in specification with ocean and transnational security in 2010. About the career milestones and working experience, yeah, he also acting not only in Marine and also in Navy, but also lecturing as a supervisor. And he also presidential office on Global Maritime Fulcrum and also the task force from 995 combating in IUU VSINGs. And about several awards that he got a British Chevening Award for scholarship, I guess in the Master of Degree, and also Australian Leadership Award, I think in PhD. And research interest or the expertise of Mr. Kresno Buntoro, yeah, is his international law, same with me, and also law of the sea, of course, same with me also, and humanitarian and human rights. Wow, I think it's very good CV for this moderator today. So now, without any further ado and interruption, I giving the time for Mr. Kresno Buntoro, more or less is 45 minutes until 1 hour, maybe, to deliver the point or the presentation. For the honorable speakers, time is yours. You might take the floor.
Thank you, Mas Pulung, and also the host Tisha, and also distinguished participant. First of all, I would like to thank you from the committee, especially the Dean of the Faculty of Law, University of Diponegoro, for inviting me in this such what is called important floor on the summer course program. I think that is my first time to join such kind of program, especially in Faculty of Law, Universitas Diponegoro, although I've been invited in several course program as well. Again, in this occasion, I would like to sharing my understanding, especially on the law of the sea, the implementation of law of the sea, recent development, and also especially on the passage regime. The passage regime, in my opinion, would be interesting because using passage regime, user state, flag ships have a right to passage through Indonesian waters. And also thank you very much also Mas Pulung, mentioning me in my short CV. And then again, I'm really grateful to be here to support the Faculty of Law, the University of Diponegoro in having such kind of event. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, Pak Pulung already. Can you back the previous slide? Pak Pulung already talking about law of the sea and also the implementation of Indonesia, and now we got about 1 hour giving my presentation. And then that's why I would like to give my outline of my presentation, introduction, and also pre-discussion. And also I'm gonna make a brief on historical development of the law of the sea. And then I'm talking about the main principle on the law of the sea convention. And also I'm talking about the recent development, and then last presentation concerning the implementation of the law of the sea, focus on the passage regime. Next. Dear distinguished participant, when we are talking international law, it seems that we have to study about the history itself, because international law usually come up from the norm from the past and what we call history. And then there is a phrase from the John Henry Clark mentioning that history is not everything, but it is a starting point. So in this case, I would like to talk a brief on the history of the law of the sea, because the norm, what we learn today, it's come from the past, from the state practice from the past. Next, please. Distinguished participant, can you give me a short comment next concerning the pre-discussion? So why do you need the law of the sea? Is there any participant will give some short comment or opinion concerning the questions on the pre-discussion, please? Go ahead. Why do you need the law of the sea? Comment, please. Is there any comment concerning the pre-discussions? I would like to make this, the discussion is not one way, but the two ways. That's why I need your opinion concerning the certain subject. I would like to invite the participant who will give opinion or statement or comment concerning the topic. Is there any? Mas Pulung, maybe you
Yes,
can
sir.
you can start the comment concerning why do you need the law of the sea.
Oh, of course. So ideally that they have so many country, they have a different perspective and to look out or to look after what the sea belong to the country or belong to the have a communal, something like that. So that's why that we need some like the legal instrument, which is in a multilateral agreement that conduct the every country to use or usage the law of the sea and also to preserve and also to protect the territorial sea also. I think it's very, it needs some like the legal instrument to lay down and also to regulate from the every country to understand which your territorial sea and also the delimitation of the sea itself, sir. That's why that we need for that.
Any other comment or statement? Some my student mentioning because 2/3 of the earth it consists of the sea. That's why we need a law concerning the law of the sea, concerning the sea, and then there are many things, especially in the ASEAN country. Almost all the ASEAN country they got law and sorry they got maritime boundaries. So the law of the sea is paramount, very important. And that's kind of the statement come up during my presentation, last presentation. Okay, next please. Next please. Okay, as I said before, that before we go to the certain topic, it would be better if we flashback to the story of the law of the sea itself. Treve in 2014 mentioning that the law of the sea is a branch of international law as old as international law itself. Maybe as a law student, we already understand that what is the purpose of the law, what is the philosophy background of the law, and then as the law itself for example, the control of the society, the engineering of the society, and then to make a life in order. So the law of the sea itself, in this case, they have the purpose almost the same of the law itself. So the law of the sea itself is as old as international law. You can see in the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, they are touched on the law of the sea itself because in this case at that time there is conflict between countries which almost taken place in the maritime aspect. Next please. The essential of the international as a law student, I do believe that you already understand this kind of things, but I just want to make it a brief that in the essential of the international law, at least consists of 4 aspects, which is sovereignty, usually on the formally the country and the state, they got sovereignty just only in the land. And then after that, the sea. After that, the airspace above the land and also the sea. And also the international law recognize the territorial integrity. It mentioning in the UN Charter as well. And also we recognize the friendly relation and cooperation. If you understand the article 2.3 or 2.4, the UN Charter stated that all the dispute between nation or the country or the state have to settle in the peaceful mean. So the framework of the international law usually have a certain peaceful settlement of dispute. Maybe it's look like when we live in our neighborhood, usually we are already conflict with our neighbor as well. So there must be mechanism how to settle the dispute itself. And also like the country or the state or the nation itself. Next, please. That's the essential of the international law. And also the source of the international itself, it is the international treaty. I already mentioned law of the sea convention as part of international treaties. And also we understand the customarily of international law. Some scholars mention the jus cogens, general principle of law, and also judicial decision and teaching of the published or the scholar. That's the source of international law. Although we recognize that the international law is the most important source of the international law. Sorry, international treaties is the most important source of international law. Next, please. And also the law of the sea or United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. It's one of the international treaties. Next, please. Historical development of the law of the sea, you can see from the slide. Can you back, please? The previous slide presentation. Okay, the historical development, we can say start from the Treaty of Tordesillas, 1494, between Spain and Portugal, which is the Pope divided the world into two, which is belong to Portugal and also belong to Spain. After that, there are in Europe, especially there is the rise of countries or the nation or the state, and then they need to enhance the territory, especially in the sea, and then scholar from the country write a book, and then that's why at that time in the 17th century there is a battle of the book, mostly written how the country or the state have the territory on the sea. We have Hugo Grotius, we have John Sheldon, and etc. And after that, we have the Hague Conference 1930, try to codify the international law, especially in the law of the sea. We in this Hague Conference conclude, for example, the innocent passage, and also the flag state and some other criminal activities, which is, for example, the jurisdiction of the flag state, and then also, but at that time, the participant of the conference do not agree on how wide of the sea which can belong to the coastal state. And then after that, after the World War II, the the rise of the countries, if you notice that after World War II, there is a special norm which is non-colonial alien, non-colonialization. So at that time, there are many countries declare their independence. There are many countries, new countries born after the World War II. And then after that, followed by UN Conference on the Law of the Sea. For example, there is at least 3 conferences. Next, please. But before in 1994, there is a special development. In this case, Truman Proclamation. President Truman, the President of the United States at that time, mentioning that having concern for the urgency of the conserving and prudently utilizing national resources, the government of the United States regard the natural resources and subsoil and the seabed on continental shelf. So in 1994, the concept of the continental shelves come up. The concept of the continental shelf is formally start from the natural prolongation of the land. And at that time, the United States concerned in the Gulf of Mexico. Natural prolongation. And the concept itself also recognized in the 1982 Law of the Sea Convention as well. Next, please. As I mentioned before, after World War II, there are many countries become new countries, and then there is an interest of the new countries. So there are many unilateral claims. For example, in 1952, there was a San Diego Declaration on the Maritime Zone. In this case, the government of Chile, Ecuador, and Peru proclaim a norm of the international maritime policy that they each possess exclusive sovereignty and jurisdiction of the sea. I mentioned before, the President Truman, he concerned on the natural prolongation, and then we call it continental shelf. But the Peru, Ecuador, and Chile, they not just only in the seabed and subsoil, but also in the water, and then we call it maritime zone. And then we call it the patrimonial sea theory. How far is it? Later on. Please, next. And then I mentioned before that there were 3 conferences. The first conference, we call it United Nations Conference on the Law on the Sea first, held in Geneva in 1958, concluded 4 conventions. And the first convention on the territorial sea and contiguous zone, the second convention on the continental shelf, codification from the Truman Proclamation, and also the Convention of the High Seas, and then the Convention of Fishing, Conservation of Living Resources of the High Seas. I just want to point out in here, there is no convention on the EEZ, Exclusive Economic Zone, but some scholars believe that EEZ is modified from the 4th convention, which is Convention on Fishing and Conservation of Living Resources of the High Seas. we can look further after that. Next, please. Okay, and the first conference, the participant, the member state of the conference do not agree on the weight of the territorial sea. Although the term of the territorial sea recognized, but they are not concluded how far coastal states have a territorial sea. That's why there is second diplomatic conference. We call it UN Conference 2, held in 1960, and then they try to meet again to conclude how far the coastal state have the territorial sea. But again, the second conference failed, and the members participants of the conference do not agree on the weight of the territorial sea itself. And then in this case, I would like to mention as well, but Indonesia as a new state as well, Indonesia become new countries in 1945, August 1945. We still use colonial law at that time, and then because Netherlands or Dutch government recognized 3 nautical miles, so Indonesia at that time just only have 3 nautical miles for territorial sea. And then Indonesia as independent state do not certify the weight of the territorial sea just only 3 nautical miles. So in 1957, the government of Indonesia declared that Indonesia has 12 nautical miles. The idea of territorial sea 12 nautical miles submitted by Indonesia delegation to the conference UN conference on the law of the sea first, but it's declined by the committee. And then also Indonesia joined the second conference as well, but it's not recognized as well. And that time in 1957, not just only the weight of the territorial sea is 12 nautical miles, and that time as well Indonesia drawn the baseline from the point-to-point theory. We call it archipelagic baseline. The foundation of the archipelagic baseline is based on the Anglo-Norwegian fisheries case in 1951. And also the concept of archipelagic state, which is brought up by Indonesia, also been brought up by the Philippines at that time. So in 1957, UN conference on the law of the sea, the first, Indonesia and Philippines brought the concept of the archipelagic state concept. Next, please. During the negotiation on the third UN conference on the law of the sea, there is Ambassador Afid Prado. He brought up the new concept, what we call international seabed, and then we call it deep seabed mining. Although he brought up the concept, what we call how do you call it? The the this seabed or the area is from the common heritage of mankind. That's the new concept brought up by Ambassador Afid Prado. Next, please. Okay, and then we come up to the Law of the Sea Convention in 1982, and then I myself prefer to use Law of the Sea Convention instead of United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Because sometimes when we Law of the Sea or we call UNCLOS, sometimes mess up with the conference, not just only the convention, but also the conference. And the convention itself adopted in 1982, maybe you already understand, and that entered into force in 1994, which is the 60th instrument of the ratification. And then the major treaty consists of 17 parts, and then 9 annexes, and 320 articles. And then maybe you understand as well that the Law of the Sea Convention must be considered as package deal. You leave it or you take it. There is no reservation in these international treaties. And then, but you can have a declaration on certain norm. And then Ambassador Tomiko from the Singapore consider the Law of the Sea Convention as the constitution for the ocean, having considered the norm that already concluded, and also almost cover all the issue of the ocean. Although there are some issue which is not been drafted in the convention yet. For example, military exercise, and also the construction of the ships, manning of the ship, etc. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, the main principle of the Law of the Sea Convention consists of three, which is principle of freedom. If you read the law, the convention itself, you can find the word freedom, especially the freedom of navigation, the freedom of flight, the freedom of seas, etc. And also the principle of the sovereignty. The concept freedom and sovereignty, you can look back to 17th centuries. The Battle of the Book, the core of the Battle of the Book is the concept and the rest of the country, which is one country happy to have the freedom, but another country happy to have the sovereignty. Until now, the battle of the interest between the user state and the coastal state still exists today. And then the last principle already mentioned before from the Ambassador Afid Prado, the principle of common heritage of mankind. Next, please. How to compromise the interests of the countries? One of the way how to compromise the interests is helping maritime zone. As you can see, we in the Law of the Sea, we have at least 8 zone or maritime zone, which is territorial sea, internal waters, archipelagic waters for the archipelagic countries, and then territorial seas, contiguous zone, exclusive zone, extended continental shelf or high seas, and also the deep seabed, or we call it the area. This maritime zone is the way how the law of the sea try to compromise the interests of the countries. In the territorial sea, coastal states, they have the sovereignty, not only in the water, but also in the air, above on the water. After that, the coastal states do not have the sovereignty, but just only have the sovereign right. For example, in exclusive economic zone or in continental shelf. In certain zone, we call it contiguous zone, the coastal state, they got specific right. For example, immigration, sanitation, and custom and fiscal. In the high seas, coastal states do not have sovereign right. So especially we have in here what we call freedom of high seas. But in law of the sea also recognized, but there is not really freedom, because all the activities, ships, for example, have to consider the protection, conservation of the environment, and also in a seabed. In a seabed, until now we have institution or organization what we call International Seabed or International Seabed Area Authority in Jamaica. Next, please. Well, that is development after United Nations Convention 1982. We have implementing agreement, deep seabed mining. Some scholars, they write a book concerning why United States do not want to ratify, although United States signed to the convention. One of the considering is concerning the deep seabed mining. That's why in 1994, the members, the party of the convention, sit together, try to a little bit slightly modify the norm of the seabed mining, and concluded 1994. And also the US also considered the highly migratory species, and then that's why concluded the agreement, peace talk agreement in 1994. But although these two norm already modified, until now United States still do not want to ratify. And also there are certain elaboration from the norm concerning the role of international organization. In the law of the sea convention, they just mentioning international organization, but we do not understand mixed international organization that been meant by the article of the law of the sea. That's why there is like a publication, Department Law of the Sea, UN Department of the Sea, UN Dualos. They publish publication on the elaboration, the role of international organization, especially International Maritime Organization, the role of the IMO in this case, and also the International Seabed Authority that I mentioned before, and also Food Agriculture Organization. You can go to the web of the FAO, and then you can see that the concern of the organization, FAO organization, now as a food stock on the fish, on the ocean food stock. And also International Oceanographic Commission under UNESCO, and also International Hydrographic Organization, in this case, especially on the navigational chart. And also there is the role of regional arrangement and institution. For example, RFMO, Regional Fish Management Organization, and also the IFMO itself, they are already concluded. For example, IOTC, Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, and CCPT. There are many things how to regulate, especially the fish resources. That's part of the fish stock agreement, as on the part of the highly migratory species. Maybe you already understand highly migratory species. For example, the fish itself is the small fish in a certain way become big fish, and then back to it's like always move around the world. Next, please. That's an international governmental conference on the marine biodiversity and areas beyond national jurisdictions. As I mentioned before, the area beyond national jurisdiction, in this case ISIS, then how to control or regulate marine biodiversity. There is a intergovernmental conference on this case. That's a recent development as well. So as a student of the law of the sea, you not just only read the convention, but also you have to read many resolutions. For example, from the International Maritime Organization, on the IOC, IHO, and also resolution under UN, also intergovernmental organization. And also ODC as well, UNODC, United Nations Ocean Drug and Crime. Next, please. And why there are so many development on the law of the sea? It's not just only human dimension, but also many things. For example, climate change, the sea level rise, and then the environmental changes, and so degrading resources, the fish stock depleted, rare, the certain fish species is already gone, for example, and then it becomes threat to the sustainable livelihood. I already mentioned UNFRO concern the fish stock on the food stock for the many countries. Some I already read the journal. There is no enough fish stock for providing protein, fish protein for the human, from the human now at that time, and this time. Next, please. And then come up to the implementation of the law of the sea. Next, please. I just want to give you a brief geographical dimension in the South China Sea. Sorry, in the Southeast Asia. You can see in here, there is a semi-enclosed sea, for example, South China Sea, Sulawesi Sea, that's considered as semi-enclosed sea. And then we understand as well, there is archipelagos, for example, Indonesia, Philippines, also PNG. And there are many choke points. In the choke point, we consider strait used for international navigation. For example, Strait of Malacca, Strait of Singapore, Strait of Sunda, Strait of Lombok, Strait of Makassar, Strait of Ombe-Betar. And then there are many hub ports, for example, Singapore hub port and also Klang or Malaysia hub port. And then the increase of maritime security risk because of the geographical dimension, but also because of the security within certain country. And also, there are still many territorial disputes. I just mentioned, for example, Indonesia and Singapore, although we already have 3 agreements, but we haven't concluded the whole maritime boundaries. Indonesia and Malaysia as well, we haven't concluded all the maritime boundaries. Also with Australia, with India, with Vietnam, with Philippines. Indonesia and Philippines already have EEZ boundaries, but we haven't concluded continental shelf boundaries. That's some example that there's still territorial dispute between countries just only in the Southeast Asia. And also there are overlapping maritime zone and undelimited maritime boundaries that already mentioned before. Because, for example, Indonesia have a right to claim 12 nautical miles EEZ, but the other hand, Vietnam has a right as well to claim EEZ 200 nautical miles. Indonesia and Vietnam do not have, it just only have about 300 nautical miles. So Indonesia try to claim maximal 200 nautical miles, and Vietnam also claim 200 nautical miles. It's mean that there is overlapping claim between 2 countries. And that's just only example. The same case also take place between Indonesia and Malaysia, and also Indonesia with Thailand, for example, Malaysia with Thailand, and then many countries as well, not just only Indonesia. But I haven't got information that all the countries have already concluded all the maritime boundaries. Next, please. Dear participant, summer course, have a look at the map. That's the Indo-Pacific major shipping lane. Already mentioned certain critical issues, especially choke point. For example, Malacca and also Singapore Straits, and also Sunda Strait, because all the choke point as a prime route for seaborne trade. Maybe you understand as well that because of the technology, the ship, the container on the park, the cargo ships become bigger and bigger. The crew become less and less. So the potential accident getting high. Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore have to take a precaution to avoid, for example, collision, ships stranded, and many things. That's the threat for the coastal state. Next, please. Already mentioned this one before. Next, please. Let's look the animation, how to define a maritime zone. Next, click. That's a baseline. Next, that's a territorial sea, 12 nautical miles. This is a EZ, 200 nautical miles. And this is a continental shelf, seabed and subsoil. And then the rest is high seas. Let's look at the color, yellow color. It's mean that the sovereignty of the coastal state, not just only 12 nautical miles, but also the area beyond of the water stuff, the airspace. Next, please. Let's look the passage. There are a lot of the sea, at least they're mentioning about the three passages, which is innocent passage, which is the passage come up during 17th century. And then there is a transit passage. There is also Archipelago passage. So in law of the sea, there is at least three passages. But there is also one passage based on the agreement between Indonesia and Malaysia. We call it access and communication passage based on Article 51 Law of the Sea. Let's look to the transit passage. Transit passage can be exercised and is straight used for international navigation. The transit itself is non-suspendable, so in the coastal state do not have a right to suspend the passage. It cannot be hampered. It's just only subject to navigation restriction. For example, there is a traffic expansion scheme. The traffic expansion scheme itself has to be brought to the IMO to adopt it. The coastal state just only have a right to enact the law for the safety of navigation, for the controlling the pollution, fishing, fiscal, immigration, custom, and sanitation. Yes, please. Next, please. Let's look the maritime security, the maritime zone, and how the transit passage can be exercised. This is state A and state B. State A, they have 3 nautical miles. Between state A and state B, there is a strait, and then it can be considered here, can be considered as high seas. So it's become of the freedom of navigation. But the passage in here considered as innocent passage. Click, please. And then this, because of the Sea Convention, the state, they have a right to claim 12 nautical miles. So the strait which is formerly high seas now become, there's no high seas anymore. There is overlapping claim in here. And then how to exercise the passage like this one. From here, the ships, they have enjoying the freedom of navigation, but after entering the strait, they just only have a right what we call transit passage. Next, please. Controversial issues in the strait used for international navigation. The Article 42, they're mentioning about normal mode operation by foreign ship and aircraft. So transit passage right is for ships and aircraft. But how to define normal mode? Undefined until now. And then Article 43 mentioning about burden sharing. But until now, we do not have example to what extent burden sharing can be implemented. And also, there is also considering environmental regulation and strait use for international navigation. There is an interesting case when Australia go to the International Maritime Organization and then consider the Torres Strait as a compulsory pilotage. It means that all passengers who can pass through the Torres Strait have to follow compulsory pilotage. Compulsory pilotage means that user state have the certain amount of burden, or user state have to pay some money for pilotage. Next, please. And the second, innocent passage. It's innocent passage regulated in chapter 3, usually, especially in article 17 in enacted. This is how to define innocent passage. Next, please. This is innocent passage. That's a 3 nautical miles. Next, there's a freedom of navigation because of the ISIS. Next, please. 17 until 25, Article 18 mentioning passage which is not innocence. You can look into Article 18. The passage itself must not prejudicial to the peace, good order, or security of the coastal state. Again, how to define not prejudicial to the peace, good order, or security of coastal state. That's undefined. And usually it defined by each coastal state, but there is no general understanding or common understanding to define peace, good order, or security coastal state. Next, please. Innocent passage just only can be exercised by ships. This is prohibited activities I mentioned before. I just want to point out the last one. And then this kind of norm against undefined clearly. For example, any activities not having a direct bearing on passage. How to define this kind of thing? Undefined. Again, each country or each state, coastal state, for example, try to define based on their interests, and usually different between one state to another state. Next, please. That's a law making power in the territorial sea under Article 21. I leave it to you. Next, please. Next, please. And then that's how we call sea lane and traffic experience scheme. I'm gonna leave it to you as well. Maybe we can discuss after the presentation. Next, please. That's a limitation. So in innocent passage, okay, yeah. Next, please. There is no discrimination in innocent passage as well. Again, in innocent passage, coastal state can suspend the passage. Next. The suspension of innocent passage in under Article 25, para 3. The reason is based on the security. So in a transit passage, the passage cannot be suspended, but in an innocent passage, the passage can be suspended. The reason the coastal state can suspend the innocent passage based on the security reason. Next, please. There's a criminal and civil jurisdictions. Criminal jurisdictions. So I mentioned before that there is a jurisdiction of flag state, but in certain cases, there is also criminal jurisdiction. The criminal jurisdiction generally not to be exercised unless the consequences of the crime extend the coastal state. The crime kind of the peace of the country or good order on the territorial sea. Master ships or representation of the flag state. And then I leave it to you. Civil jurisdiction, the civil jurisdiction are the Article 28. Next, please. There is issue to be discussed. Maybe you can ask question concerning this kind of things. For example, ship carrying weapon mass destruction. They just only passing through the territorial sea. Can we apprehend it? Can we stop it? Can we process it? How about a ships have been used for people trafficking or human trafficking? Again, there is how do you call it? Is there any right for coastal state to stop it, or is this the right of the flag state? Next, please. And the third, archipelagic sea land passage. Next, please. This is how to draw archipelagic baseline. This is territorial sea. This is contiguous zone. Next, this is EEZ. Next, is its extended continental shelf. Within archipelagic waters, archipelagic state can draw closing line for internal waters. Next, please. Limitation of sovereignty of archipelagic state. you can read Article 53, Article 52. There is also innocent passage in archipelagic waters. There is also right of transit passage under Article 38. There is also traditional fishing right under Article 51. Also respected the existing underwater cable and also legitimate interests, legitimate activities under Article 51. Next, please. Legal aspect of archipelagic sea land passage, and that's the concept brought up by Philippines and also Indonesia at that time. I mentioned before, Philippines in 1955, Indonesia in 1957. Archipelagic sea land just only mentioned in the two articles, although Article 54 mentioning Article 39, 40, 42, and 44. Until now, just only Indonesia defined a designated archipelagic sea land bases. Philippines still under study, and also the legal issue concerning the role of IMO and also maritime countries. This based on the next, please. This is archipelagic sea land bases. So an archipelagic state may. So on the right is under archipelagic itself. Designated sea lane air route. So it seems just the archipelagic sea lane passage is for ship and aircraft, suitable for continuous and expeditious passage. So it seems the passage must from the EZ or IC to another EZ or ICs. So if ships from the high seas or EZ go to Indonesia port and also continue their passage, the ship itself cannot consider enjoying the archipelagic sea land passage. Next, please. Next, please. There's a right and duties. This is right and duties of archipelagic state, and then right and duties ships and aircraft. We can elaborate during the question and answer session. Next, please. Let's look this one, illustration. Just click, please. Next. Next, please. Next. 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 Next, please. Next. Next. Controversial issues concerning the archipelagic sea land passage is legal and operational level. This look like in the transit passage in Article 53, they're mentioning about normal mood. But again, we don't know what it's considered normal mood. and also definition of all normal passage routes used for international navigation and overflight, undefined. And again, the last one concerning the how to enforce the law in archipelagic sea lanes. If you find a ship's passage outside of the corridor, and then what should we do? It's just administrative, or it's just criminal one. And then legal policy, how to define full destination. That's the role of IMO itself. The IMO considered as international organization who have a right to adopt the proposal of the archipelagic state. But the IMO itself, as far as I know, they do not have right to consider which is the proposal is full destination or just only partial destination. And also the controversial issue concerning technical issues, like the illustration before, how to consider 10% rule. The illustration is based on Indonesia experience, but it seems different with the US interpretation. And also the technical issue on the access line, the technical issue concerning the traffic experience scheme in archipelagic Chilean. Although Indonesia at that time, the Strait of Sunda and the Strait of Lombok, Indonesia already designated TSS within the archipelagic Chilean. And also how to define islands bordering the access line. Next, please. That's the normal mode that I mentioned before. Is it part of the normal mode? And it's just only overview the controversial issues. Some countries, this is mentioning this is a normal mode, but the countries is not just only that one. There are many things. And how to define many things? Next, please. That's the last passage I mentioned before, based on agreement between Indonesia and Malaysia. Next, please. Legal consideration based on Article 51, and then this considered a legitimate interest, and then also bilateral agreement. And the idea is how to connect between Malaysia Peninsula and Sarawak. And then the route itself is for ship and aircraft. Next, please. That's the one, the illustration map. So the ship, when the Malaysian ships can passing through Natuna Sea using that corridor. Next, please. I think that's all. And then thank you very much for your attention. I hope that we can discuss further, elaborate further during a question and answer session. Mas Pulung, yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Admiral Laksamana Kresno Buntoro, for such very enlightening topic and also maybe a comprehensive presentation. Yeah. So now we're moving from the question and answer. So actually, you already have 2 questions. Yeah. Maybe you can also pay attention in the chat box. The question is always raised there. So maybe I will read for you. But before that, maybe the question can be divided by 2. First is in chat box, and maybe they will be have a participant will ask directly. So maybe I will write for you first in the first term. Yeah, they have two questions on the text box. The first is from participant. Yeah, Saswan from the National University Malaysia. He asking about even we have the law of the sea that provide the jurisdiction of the state upon its territorial sea. However, the conflict related to the chasing and overlapping territorial sea is never end. In your opinion, what is the best solution to solve this conflict with win-win solution? This is the first question, I think the classical question. And the second is from Elisa Julie from Universitas Diponegoro. She would like to ask your opinion about the discovery of underwater drone, maybe captured or caught by fishermen by late December 2020 off the coast of the Selayar Island, South Sulawesi. Is there any action taken by the government to overcome this issue? I think that's the second question first. Laksamana Krishna Buntara, maybe I give you opportunity to answer or respond this question. Time is yours.
Thank you. Pak Syahwan from the National University of Malaysia.
Yeah, UKM.
What is your opinion? My opinion is communication. We have to establish communication, better communication. Yeah, maybe your understanding is quite right that although law of the sea already mentioning that coastal state they have right to draw or to claim a territorial sea, but the problem in here, how to claim it, how to claim the territorial sea. There is disputed on technical aspect how to draw the baseline, and then from the baseline how to far coastal state can claim the territorial sea. The fact that Indonesia and Malaysia got experience, we already may have agreement on the southern part of the Strait of Malacca on the territorial sea delimitation, but we haven't agreed on the Sebatik, Kalimantan Timur or East Kalimantan. We still on progress, we still on table how to define not just only territorial sea, but also the continental shelf and also the EEZ. Why this kind of conflict take place? Because the differences in interest between coastal state sometimes come first, and then in my opinion, although we have to go through the negotiation on maritime delimitation, but we have to also go to another way how to solve the real issues in the field. For example, how to protect the fishermen, how to protect the use of the sea, people who use to the sea. And that's the one that my opinion is important for both countries, for example, on the coastal state, to set the rules, guidance to solve the problem, not just only to draw on the line, but also the effect of the line itself that have to be discussed as well. So my suggestion, my opinion, we have to establish good communication. Although sometimes between neighbors, the communication is not run well, but we have to try. Not just only neighbor, between friends, sometimes the communication is not run well as well. I think that's all. That's on the first question, and thank you very much, Pak Syafwan. And then the second question concerning the underwater drone. The problem in here, you mentioned about the case here. The problem is we could not decided whose drones belong to? And the second thing is, we could not decided the drone launched in EEZ, in high seas, or in Indonesian waters. We just find the drone stranded. The drone itself is damaged. So the drone itself do not have quote unquote flag. So that's why we cannot, the fact that we confuse, to whom that we have to communicate, to whom that we have to establish, for example, a diplomatic channel, because there is no identification on the drone itself. And the second thing, there is no organizations who send letter to Indonesian government mentioning that the drones belong to them. So it's difficult. And in this case, the first thing that we have to identify is the legal status on the drone. Again, it's difficult. And then where the drone to belongs is difficult. We just found in the Indonesian shore, but the launch itself in where? And what activities of the drone itself, we don't know. The three aspect, it's the fundamental aspect to define or to justify or to make a clarification concerning the drone itself. I think that's all. Or maybe Indonesian or you, Pulung, you can invite me to have special meeting concerning this case, because I've been invited in many university, but not my university.
Okay. with pleasure, sir. Maybe if we talk about have this like the real case in based on your perspective, I think that our department, especially Department in International Law, will be have kindly invite you in our discussion.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So now we moving again to the question. There also have response and the following question from the Shashwan. But maybe I will give it Shashwan to ask directly. Maybe you can turn on your microphone and asking your the point of confirmation also the following up question. Time is yours, Shashwan.
Can everyone hear my voice right now?
Yeah, go ahead, Sawan.
Greetings, Admiral Krishno. So my next question is about the conflict that happened in South China Sea. As we can see that the United States of America and also the China government have a big conflict about the claiming of the South China Sea. So does this conflict can breach any law of the sea that govern the jurisdiction upon the South China Sea? And also, if there is any war or also any conflict that has been made more longer and also can bring bad effect to the nearby countries, is there any legal action can be taken to the state or the parties that breach the law?
Yeah, thank you, Shawan. Well, that's a difficult question, although I've been invited in several universities in Malaysia, at least 4 times I've been in Malaysia concerning this kind of things, I've been inviting the China as well and discussing, and also Philippines. And then that's my interesting, my focus of research as well concerning South China Sea. And then from my understanding, since 1970s until now, the conflict still exists. And then you can ask me when we'll end it, never ended. And I always say that it's like a never ending story. And then why this kind of issues always come up. Yeah, because of domination. As may you aware as well that U.S. Has a domination and the globe domination, and then you might aware as well that it seems that U.S. at that time is declining. It's like life, you know. Someone is not only in a high, but sometimes someone also in the down. I mentioned Spain and Portugal. At that time, there's the two countries is really powerful. And then where is now Spain and Portugal? And also UK and also Netherlands or Dutch at that time. And that's my opinion. US and allies try to maintain their domination in the South China Sea. The other hand, there is a rising dragon, China in this case. China, they got a lot of money, uncountable money. They got people, billion. They got technology. And then if you read the blue book of the China, they already mentioned that in 2030, they're gonna dominate Asia. And then 2050, they're gonna dominate world. And then the problem in here about Malaysia and Indonesia. China just only passing through us. Passing through Malaysian water and also Indonesian water. In this case, how we can get advantage, the rise of China, for example. How about the conflict itself? Conflicts itself, back to your questions. In my opinion, it can breach the law of the sea. If you understand the claiming of the China claiming 9 dash line or 11 dash line in 1947, and then it cannot recognized by international law, and then because there is a principle in international land dominated sea, not sea dominated land. Okay. So we have to define the land who belongs to, and then after that we are define the maritime zone. That's the law of the sea mentioning. But the China, they make it the reverse. They claim the maritime claim first, and then they say that all the things, geographical features within the 9 Iceland, it's belong to China. But it seems that China also, they little bit twist the concept. They know, you understand as well, they make a reclamation in certain geographical features, and then make a human habitation in this reclamation, and then based on the reclamation, which is fossa, we call it concept fossa, which is a 4 big island, and then if you draw the line in 4 big island, man-made island, the line, the 200 nautical miles, it look like the 9 dash line mentioning in 47. You already understand as well, and there is a court of arbitration in 2016 between Philippines and also China, although China did not recognize, but almost all the claim, how do you call it, Philippine claim what you call it here, China seem lost the the decision of the permanent court of arbitration. It seems did not they recognize, they still go on. And then when we are talking about the breach of any law of the sea, yeah, there are many concerning the reclamation itself, concerning the environment itself. How about the US? You understand as well that there is a freedom of navigation program. That's a US policy, not just only in South China Sea, but also all the world. The freedom of navigation program, the first time declared by President Jimmy Carter in late 70s, and now it takes place until now. It consists of three policy. The first is diplomatic one. The second thing is freedom of navigation operation. The second thing is assisting and also claiming. What happened in the field now is the second one, freedom of navigation operation, not just only in US itself, but US also invited the allies, Australia, India, also other countries. Nowadays, there is a German warship in the China Seas. That's all. I'm sorry, I cannot maybe answer your question clearly, but that's, in my opinion, the conflict in South China Sea is like never-ending stories. Sometimes really high, but sometimes it's going down. But I'm not worried about South China Sea issues. I'm worried about South Indian Ocean issues. Why I'm worried issues or maybe conflict in Indian Ocean, because in South China Sea there are many ways how to ease the tense. For example, first track diplomacy, 1.5 diplomacy, second track of diplomacy, also person-to-person contact. They're already established to ease the conflict in South China Sea. But how about the conflict in Indian Ocean? There is nothing. The issue also the same in Indian Ocean. There are not many people that nowadays concern on Indian Ocean. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you, Admiral Krishna Buntara. Now we still have 5 minutes left. So before I giving to Tisha to the end this session, is there any question again? Please raise your hand. Maybe I will give opportunity to you to just ask directly. Is there any question? Please raise your hand. None. Okay, so because due that there are no question, Mr. Admiral Buntara, so maybe I give you your time to make a closing statement, 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Yes.
Okay, first, I'm quite happy that there are many students interested on the law of the sea. As I mentioned in the pre-discussion, that the 2/3 of the Earth consists of sea or maritime, and the issue in the maritime, it's complicated, complex, transnational, but there are no many scholars really eager to study the law of the sea. So I'm very happy that there are many, especially Shawan. I do really appreciate that you are really interested in the issues. I do hope that you can become scholars on the law of the sea from the Malaysia, and then the second one. I would like to thank you to the committee and also from the Dean of the Faculty of Law in University of Diponegoro from this opportunity to share my understanding on the law of the sea. The fact that I'm alumni from the Pelaburan, but that's a good chance for me to share my understanding. The fact that my expertise is in law of the sea. So please, you can ask me, you can invite me anytime, and I will do my support to my adik-adik in Fakultas Hukum. I think that's all. Again, thank you very much, and then I do hope that you do have a good time, good health in the difficult time, and then let's take this opportunity to help each other to fight against the virus. I think that's all. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. God bless you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you from Archipelago Kresno Buntoro. On behalf of the Faculty of Law and also the academia, we would like to say thank you because I think this is the special occasion, very mutual beneficial, especially in the law of the sea, from the expert itself. So I think we have thank you very much. And don't forget, I will follow up about the opportunity to invite you again in regarding about how to criticize the issue, the real issue on Indonesia and also happen in over the world. So now I giving back the time to Tisha. Back to Tisha, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pulung, and absolutely, Admiral Kresno Buntoro, for your comprehensive and insightful material. Is actually very eye-opening. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we will hold a photo sessions with our special speakers and absolutely our moderator. In order that, for all the participants, please turn on your camera. Okay, come on guys, don't be shy. Please turn on your camera. I want to see your beautiful face. All right. Okay, on my side, in 3, 2, 1. Okay, once more, give your best pose. In 3, 2, 1. All right, finally, we are in the end of the sessions. It has been a great and wonderful morning with all of you. May what we had conducted today will be useful for us. As the Master of Ceremony, on behalf of committee, would like to apologize if had any mistake during this event. That's all for today. See you in another sessions of Summer Course Lex Proficia 2021. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Santi 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 Om. Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan untuk kita semua. Stay safe and stay healthy all. Have a good rest. Bye.
Thank you, Laksamana Kresno Buntoro. We see you again, yeah?
Yeah.
Permission to leave. Selamat siang Pak Kresno, matur nuwun.